first time I ever laid eyes upon this place when I was a young child.
Probably around 5 or 6 years old, I would be going down to my grandmother's farm.
Driving up and down Dixie Highway.
Grandma, what is that? What is that place up there?
I'd look up and I'd see that tower looming above the trees.
And she referred to it as a crazy hospital. Don't you ever go up there.
And just wonder what in the world lurked in that old building.
You could see actual movement, and it just got busier and busier, and you could just see shadows passing each other.
When the train come by, all these bodies from Kentucky come here, had to come here.
He encountered what he said was a girl that was not normal. He kept saying she had no eyes. It really freaked him out, and he said he would never come back up to this building again.
If you look up at the top of the building where the bell towers are, lots of times you'll see the windows go dark, like a figure or someone's walking across in front of the window.
It's gonna get you. It's gonna get you. You know, no light's gonna save you, no gun, no knife, no fist, nothing. It's gonna get you.
5 steps in, I mean, you feel swallowed.
You hear all kinds of noises, you see all kinds of things.
I've seen lights in the building when there's no electricity.
The guy actually did pee on himself, and he would not tell anybody what he saw.
It is a monster of a building.
Shadows moving around, that's one of the things that we can't explain.
What does Waverly Hills mean to you when you first hear it?
Crazy shit.
Scary.
Scary as hell.
A long time ago, when they decided to build this hospital up here, they were looking for a place that was way out from the city. And at one time, this was out in the middle of nowhere. And they found this place on top of this hill that had a breeze all the time, and so that's where they decided to build a hospital. And they built a small wooden one, and in no time at all, they were overloaded. So they got the money from the state, and they built the hospital that I'm sitting in now, and it was completed in 1926. It had a completion price of $1.1 million back in 1926. So this was a very large expenditure at that time, because tuberculosis, the white plague, was really wreaking havoc on the public. A lot of people were dying. The back of the building has got a curvature to it that faces to the southwest, and that's the way that the general breeze blows all the time year-round. And it was picked out, and the building was designed this way with the curvature to the back, so it would capture this wind and try to create a breeze that would go through the building all the time, year-round. The hospital has 4 floors and a partial 5th floor. And the first floor was more or less set up with the x-rays and the administration and the gift shops, the library, stuff like that. But when you got to the 2nd and 3rd floor, that was for the general population, where they stuck as many people in here as they could fit in. And then when you got to the 4th floor, that was for the people who had the money. And if when you go to the 4th floor, you'll notice every room up there has its own private bathroom, where on the 2nd and 3rd floor, you had a community bathroom in 3 or 4 different places down the hall.
There were people that came from all over the world to come here because it was supposed to be, you know, elite, top-of-the-line hospital as far as tuberculosis. There were a lot of locals that weren't able to come and stay here because it had other people from other states here, and so they stopped that. You had to be a resident of Jefferson County to be a patient at Waverly Hills.
This place served as a tuberculosis hospital from October 17th of 1926 up until 1961. After that point, it was closed down for approximately 2 years and remodeled, and it reopened as Woodhaven Geriatrics Center, which is basically a nursing home. And it remained that until 1980 when it closed its doors for good.
We're going to be going on Waverly's got 5 floors to it. We're going from the 1st floor all the way up to the 5th, trying to catch all the hot spots that we can find. This building can't hurt you, so please stay with me.
So you don't think Waverly Hills is haunted?
Right now, what I've got with me is an area of different equipment. It's called an EMF meter, electromagnetic field meter. This is the sound it makes. Right now, it's going off.
Electromagnetic field meter. This reads the natural electromagnetic fields that are all around us constantly, man-made or natural. If a spirit or ghost is here, that's what this thing reacts to. So what we usually get in here is a lot of EVP. I took a tour in here one night. First thing I tell people is you can't smoke in here, just out of respect of what the building was. So what we got was right here. As you can hear me talking on this tape, you hear a cigarette lighter clink, and you hear somebody light the cigarette. You hear a lighter clink back, and it shuts. And right behind that, you hear, put that out, put that out.
the patients could have. You know if they had children too? Now right through here, like I was telling you, you come out that door right there, and you come into the big auditorium, the second floor. And every Wednesday night they'd have picture shows or different entertainment.
We had the entertainment, we had things at Christmas time.
They'd have a big Christmas party, and out in that front lawn, they'd bring us Santa Claus, reindeers, and a sled, and he'd unload that sled. And that's when I was a child, you know. They'd unload it, and that Santa Claus would take them reindeers around us sleigh ride.
But I just want to say something about the good things about Waverly Hills. Because if people enjoyed themselves to some degree, there was a lot of fun things went on there. I could tell you some stories that are real interesting. One of the doctors there once had a horse, and he liked to get the patients out and let them ride the horse if he could. He said might as well let them enjoy themselves because they didn't have as long to enjoy life as some other people did anyway.
Like a family. You're like a family.
This is actually what's been called the death wing. This is where they brought the bodies down. They didn't want the people to see them. We know for a fact over 60,000 people did die here, especially the first year alone, and almost 20,000 people died. They bring them in, put them in these freezing chambers, but what they realized real quickly, was that they just didn't have enough time or space to get all the bodies.
All right, how about when they were taking the bodies to the elevator, the back, and the elevator break down? And all the bodies would be stacked up in front of the elevator.
They had specials to do that. They had a refrigerator and they put them in that. That damn freezer part is a certain temperature that you could keep.
Like I was telling you, the first year the wave was so heavy, so thick, they couldn't get the bodies out of here fast enough. They turned the maintenance room into a makeshift morgue.
With the morgue there, I can remember going into the morgue where they put bodies until they could be picked up or autopsied or whatever. And that was right by the back elevator. But of all the deaths in a hospital, a certain percentage of them have to be autopsied. That's a requirement.
Down this hallway, down to what's called the draining room.
These questions that we ask is because we're trying to get the truth, so it's like we're not saying we believe in any of these, but these are the things that we've been told.
We've heard so many rumors.
Like
we
there
want
was-
another
what-
side of it.
This is a little bit more, but there was supposed to be a room called the draining room. It was supposed to be a room where they hung people, drained their blood out of them, across from the morgue.
This is the draining room.
The draining room is where they used to hang the bodies upside down and cut them like this.
It may be something that happened that not everybody knew about. I don't know. I can't comment on it. I don't know about it.
They would hang the bodies up on these poles and basically slit them from the sternum to the groin and all the way down and drain the bodies, get them out, and go to the body chute or the death tunnel.
The original purpose was to be a smokehouse. It's where they kept their meat. They were totally isolated up here. They couldn't leave this farm for nothing. But this is where they ended up taking the bodies and hanging them on these hooks and poles and letting it drain out. There's a drain over here on the right-hand side. From this point, they put them back on a gurney, go through the door, and take them down to the body chute.
Brown, little, impy-looking, monster little things in all the photographs.
We've had a lot of cases where we've done tours in the building. People that don't know each other mention the same things with little short little characters that just tend to appear and disappear.
I was a nurse at Woodhaven, and I worked there for a year. And it was a place where people came to die.
They had a TB hospital, and then after the TB hospital, they had a nursing home.
Call it the Geriatric Center is what they call it.
And the nursing home, you know, of course, you had old folks here that passed away from either neglect or abuse or something like that of nature.
An old people's type home where they mistreated everybody. There's pee everywhere, there was like cockroaches everywhere.
When I took care of them, it's like they'd be laying in feces, they'd be laying in a wet bed, nobody cared about them. There'd be times I'd sit out in the parking lot and just cry because I didn't want to come in because I knew what it was going to be like when I was in here. It was nothing but pure sadness, that's it.
Yeah, people falling off of things because they weren't washed with the wheelchairs, falling off the loading docks.
A man in a wheelchair went off that loading dock right there, got killed.
This place wasn't kept real well, and the patients weren't taken care of very well.
They tell you to do something, you better do it, or you was gone.
They had locks on their doors, and there was once where there was another nurse where there was a lady sitting in a chair, and of course they tie her into the chair and stuff, and she looked like she was gonna fall out of the chair, so I went over there to help her, and the nurse told me just leave her alone, that she was gonna die anyway.
They went crazy, they were naked in cells, they were electrocuting them, shock therapy.
And they did a lot of different experiments and stuff like that. The state finally closed it down in '82. So by that point, it was just pandemonium up here. This is an electroshock therapy room. This is the first place we ever broke an EMF meter. The whole time I've been doing this for over 25 years, I've never had that happen. There was so much electromagnetic activity in this room, it fried the meter. And as you kind of see from this room, it's not very big. They put the patients over there, watch them through a big window. Doctors would stand here, and they would sit there and look at this light board here that would tell them exactly how much juice was actually going through the board.
You know, after seeing the stuff I have seen up here, it does let me know if anybody pisses me off, I can come back and haunt the hell out of them.
I was walking back, we were filming the sequence where a little girl flashed back in the 1930s, and I was walking to the set. Down the long hallway, I saw this blur, like if I was going to do it justice and describe it, it would be holographic, a little girl in a dress, and then right through a wall. And I didn't know what to say. I saw it. I knew I saw it. One of the security guards came up to me and looked at me and said, "You saw her, didn't you?" And I went, "How do you know?" I said, she goes, "You saw Mary?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, yeah, we heard her giggling this morning." They said that nonchalant, like it happens every day. And then it took me about 45 minutes to get composure, to realize, okay, accept this, you've seen one now, and that's it, and continue shooting the movie. And then, and then another spooky part is I said to the wonderful prop master, James, she ran in there, and she goes, "Well, you know why she ran in there, don't you?" I said, "No, why?" He says, "Come look." And on the table was this broken statue of a little girl holding a doll.
He encountered what he said was a girl that was not normal. He kept saying she had no eyes.
There's a little girl on the 3rd floor, and she's really creepy. She has no eyes.
Well, one day a psychic found her way through the guards before we really got good security up here, made her way up to this bathroom right over here, got into the crawl space, came out with 3 old-time pictures. The 3 pictures was of 3 boys sitting on a rock somewhere. Another one took a picture while they were moving in a car. And the 3rd picture was a school picture of a little girl, about the way a lot of people describe Mary as they see her running through the 3rd floor here on the solarium. And on the bottom in pencils wrote, "Love, Mary Lee." Now, whether Mary Lee really exists or not, we don't know. We've got photos of things that might be a little girl, might be a little boy. We don't know. So until we can finally get some absolute proof, this is where hopefully Mary stays, where we get some more proof.
Damn ball that everybody keeps talking about, like this little girl bouncing a little ball through the hallway, man. I hear that shit, dude. I hear it like tapping on that damn floor.
He encountered what he said was a girl that was not normal. He kept saying she had no eyes. It really freaked him out, and he said he would never come back up to this building again.
Never again. I've only once in my life ever heard a little girl laughing in that place in that ball. But when I saw that website, dude, and that little girl on there, I was like, yeah, I believe that one. Now I believe that for damn sure, dude.
There's a picture of the hallway. Looks like there's a ball in there, or
I have seen a ball in the building. I've had it rolled to me. Don't know where it came from. It just come rolling down the hallway when no one else was in the building. I don't bother it. I just, would leave it alone.
The first year I did a tour here, I said, picture the floor with about 1.5 feet full of garbage and dust and dirt, 20 years worth, okay? I had a bad habit of walking backwards and talking. On the 3rd floor where we got the glow stick down there, I tripped over something and landed on my butt. And when I got up to see what it was a little leather ball. So we took that ball, it was the last tour of the night, we took it and brought it up here on the 4th floor. Took it over here to the operating room. We dropped it off, finished the tour, got done and came back up. The ball was gone. We found it down on the 2nd floor.
The 3rd floor is where the little girl has supposedly been seen several times. There's a little girl who will come and ask you to play with her.
She looked probably about 6 or 7. It was like she was wrapped around the windowsill trying to figure out what was going on.
We were walking down about 2 o'clock in the morning, and we heard it sound like a small child, a little girl, say hello. And he looked at me, and I looked at him, and he said, "Did you hear that?" And I said, "What'd you hear?" And he said, I heard a little girl say hello. I said, "That's what I heard." And we both was like, "Let's get out of here."
And then I had one patient that she would always be talking to somebody. And I'd ask her who she was talking to. She told me she was talking to this little girl. She'd tell me that this little girl told her that she was going to be coming and taking her. And I just figured, well, with her being an older person, that, you know, she was just seeing things. Three days after she told me that this little girl came, she died.
Education of the people, and through them of the state, is the first and greatest need in the prevention of tuberculosis.
They was concerned about carrying disease outside of Waverly Hill. That was a big concern. Because they was afraid after going to all this business of building this place, and then the neighbors get up a petition and close them down. They done everything they could do.
The community wanted anyone with tuberculosis to be up here so that they would be quarantined. But I'm sure that everybody that came through these doors had hopes of getting better and walking out one day.
It was an epidemic state, and I guess just knowing how many people lost their lives and how many loved ones had to suffer along with them. And, you know, there was no cure for TB at the time.
Did you know how you caught
Yes,
it?
my mother. I cared for her for a year or more until she died.
I got mine from my father too. Anyhow, I think Daddy got the German when he lived with me here in Louisville. He was a vegetable or fruit inspector or something, and he lived with me at that time. I feel like that's when I got his germs. Yeah, I went to see the specialist in tuberculosis, and she sent me right out there.
So you did X-ray and the sputum test.
Yeah, I don't
needle.
At that point, they were coming out with antibiotics such as streptomycin and different pills that could cure TB, where people could actually just stay home as outpatients.
What were those white pills I remember?
INH,
Yeah.
PAS, para-aminosalicylic acid.
There you go.
Isonianic, INH, isonicotonic, hydrazide. There's INH.
That's a word. I'm impressed.
Well, see, I worked with that in the clinic where we treated patients daily with these, had them on drugs, and they came back regularly to be refilled, and If I'd have had some medicine back when I first started out, I'd have been in pretty good shape.
What we're looking for is shadows that move. People call them shadow people.
On the fourth floor, it's notorious for shadow people.
And so if you hear people that have been in the building, they'll talk about the shadow people, where you can actually see them from the outside of the building, inside the windows, but sometimes when you're in the building, you can, especially at nighttime, you can sit and look down the hall and you'll actually see a shadow move around in front of you, and you can't explain where it came from.
We think it's trespassers up here, and walk right in front of us, you know. We light it up with flashlights, and there's nobody there.
We were watching the shadow people. They were seeing it for the first time. I was there just kind of as support. And one said, "Don't look to your left. There's one standing right next to you." And you could just feel coldness all down the left side of my body. It was just extremely cold, and there was no way I was looking to the left side of my body.
If you look up around the second floor, you can actually see shadows standing there. It looks like people.
And you can go up there any night, and there's a break in light, and there's shadows that look like they move towards you.
You can see things walking. You can
see all the lights.
You can see how it's like that, okay? So if you were to walk past this door, you'll see a shadow in the hallway. So you start seeing one, and you just focus and you start seeing another, and it gets faster and faster, and it gets closer to you. Shadows of patients walking everywhere. If you look down the hallways, you see like the windows or the doorways, and you just see shadows crossing the door. Hundreds of shadows. It gets faster and faster and faster.
Just as soon as your eyes would focus, you could see actual movement, and it just got busier and busier, and you could just see shadows passing each other as if there was people walking back and forth.
I could have swore to God that I seen this figure turn sideways, and I can see arms and legs moving down the road, and it was moving actually towards to where I was standing. So I got real spooked, and I thought, you know, I'm not alone. There's somebody, you know, trying to sneak up here, trying to sneak back down. So I crept around to get up and kind of flank them to where they couldn't see me. And I came up to where it looked like it had disappeared in one of the woods, and there was nothing there. There was no signs of anybody walking, nothing. And then I got on the radio and told everybody I just chased a shadow person down the road for the first time.
I've seen shadows that walk outside the building. You shine a light on them, they're not there.
We found out by doing experiments with lasers, these things it's not cutting right through them. So they do have some type of substance.
And then he'll stick a laser light and put it across the shadow, and it will stop on the shadow, because ghosts have substance.
What's pretty cool is, drop the cameras over here. You guys night vision on? Yeah. Turn your light off. Look at that. Look at that. Oh my God! See it moving? Look at that. Look. See it coming closer? Look. See it coming closer? Is that cool or what?
Okay.
Look at that. I mean, I'm getting something right here.
Chasing ghosts, that's what we call it.
Yeah, chasing ghosts.
It's getting really cold.
I can't deal with it. Can't be in the building by myself, can't walk around by myself. It's just, you get that sick feeling in your body when you're by yourself that it's something you don't want to bear.
The only people that's ever got injured up here is Keith and Jay through the Louisville Ghost Hunters. They've had drywall thrown at them. They've had bricks thrown at
If
them.
you hear things whizzing through the air, duck, for the simple fact it's concrete. Waverly is made out of concrete. It's not plaster. The walls are all made out of concrete. And yeah, I've been on the receiving end of it a few times, and it does not feel good.
Something standing in front of her face, she couldn't see nothing but black, and she actually peed on herself.
Because you never know if it's someone or something.
I went up to the 4th floor one night, and I'm not quite sure what time it was, in the wee hours of the night, and I went up with a group of people, and it was my first time up there, and I was seeing shadows and big white things below.
Yeah, okay. Holy shit.
We all went up one night on the 4th floor, which is supposed to be the most haunted, and we all turned off our flashlights, and it was late at night, and we just stood there, and we saw like this weird thing of light
Coming towards us.
just like kind of like bouncing around, and we all saw the same thing, and there was no reflection or anything, just like this weird bulb of light.
And then it lands on our documentary filmmaker.
This is an orb that I photographed on Waverly Hills rooftop in June of 2002. Notice the size of it, notice the concentric rings, notice the eyeball in the middle. I call it the eye orb, but I changed from the eye orb to my companion orb, and I will show you why. In the next photograph, you will see the same orb, but in my apartment at home. See the rings, see the circle? This orb appeared after I said, "Mary Lee, if you would like to be in the picture in my apartment, can I take your photograph? Thank you." I took the photograph and this orb appeared.
We were up on the 2nd floor, and we were clearing the building after one night that haunted house had been open, and we were clearing from the top down. We were to the 2nd floor. It was my first time in the building. All the guards that were in there said stand against the walls, which we did. And at that time, there was a light that just went across the whole room, and it scared everybody to death.
Did you know, if anybody ever told you that they had a crazy house on the other end up to the top?
On the 5th floor, that was known as the sunrooms up there, and my dad described the roof up there.
That was for people that was all, you had to have somebody with you go up there. They would knock you in the head, some of them. They come up and grab you.
But the 5th floor wasn't very big.
It was divided into two parts. Some of the patients that had maybe some mental problems or bothered some of the other patients through the day, they would take their bed and they would roll them over to the elevator and take them up to the 5th floor and stick them out on one side of the sunroom to keep them away from the general population if they were bothering them too much.
This is the wing on the 5th floor where the mentally insane TB patients lived at, and that's where they stored them at. Welcome to the 5th floor. Who knows the stories about the 5th floor?
Well, in the first shower stall, there was these scratch marks in the tile. You know, and I'm thinking, now how in the hell did this happen?
I know, but I'd rather not say. Okay. I'd rather not say.
Well, it's local teenagers have made 502 a big thing.
There was rumors going around that a nurse had hung herself up there.
The whole reason behind it is I took the numbers off the door of 502, and whatever spirit lurks in there didn't appreciate it very much. Every place I took the numbers, I brought them home. I got kicked out of my house. I brought them to our practice spot. We got kicked out of there. So finally, I gave them to our guitar player. And now they are on the front of his guitar cabinet.
You know, when we went up there on the 5th floor, we were only up there for like 15 minutes. And it affected me for two full days.
Back in the 40s, this is during the TB days, a nurse so depressed over the conditions of people dying up here from tuberculosis took her own life by hanging herself.
Yeah, I've heard that she hung herself while she was pregnant.
No, I never heard that.
And every woman that walks into that room,
Feels
if they're pregnant,
they
gets automatically sick.
EMF meter goes crazy, right?
That's completely sick. Like they have to walk out of the room.
This room reacts to women that have been up here that were pregnant. The first time we ever came up here, Tina Manley was also with us. We pulled out an EMF meter, and it was mid-July. It was hot, muggy, but all of a sudden it went from 86 degrees to 98 degrees in 3 seconds. EMF meter went off and just went crazy. Just melted the solder right out the back of it.
And I do know for a fact that there was a nurse that supposedly committed suicide up on the 5th floor.
Now, I can't say that it didn't happen. Now, we had a patient up there that was slashed her wrist.
Now, what we do know for a fact, in 1926, the first head nurse hung herself. We've got the death record, and it was ruled a suicide. What we do know is that she was basically 27 years old, unmarried, and pregnant. So that is probably why she did hang herself. She hung herself from this. There used to be a different light fixture in here. So she sat here and hung They were 12-hour shifts at that time. So basically, she hung for 12 hours while the patients on this side sat here and watched her.
The infamous 502, where unfortunately a nurse discovered that she was pregnant out of wedlock.
She made a mistake. I'm pregnant. Killed herself.
She performed self-surgery on herself and unfortunately aborted the illegitimate child, and then
Showed us where they found that baby.
That was the first rumor that I heard. The second version was that she possibly jumped out of one of the windows.
And the fourth floor is where they done their operation and kept all of their sickest patients.
The upper class people, the people with the money who could afford the exploratory surgeries, they went to the fourth floor, and then we're given the what do you want to call it? given the royal treatment.
Waverly Hills used to, back then, do a lot of research.
This hospital always had a waiting list to get in. It never was had any empty beds in it at all. And from what we understand, the people came as far as 500 miles away to come to this facility because it was known for its cutting-edge technology in their exploratory surgery.
Well, I was told it's called pneumothorax.
New ways of resting the lung have been developed. This patient is getting pneumothorax treatment. Air is let into the chest cavity, and that rests the lung so that it can heal. When the diseased lung is fully healed, it is allowed to expand again.
What the operation consisted of is they would come in and they would cut open your rib cage, actually remove a few of your ribs. They would take and collapse the lung that was in the worst shape. And then they would keep you calm as possible and have you breathe off of your good lung, hoping that your other lung, while they had it collapsed, would start to regenerate and get into better shape. And then they'd come back later and puff it back up and see if it took.
A lifesaver for many.
They had one big room up there they called a lamp room. And this was a room that only had the ultraviolet of this type of lamp.
They would bring the patients in here before they would get the visitors to come in, and they would put them under the sun lamp the day before so they could try to get some color back into their skin.
Right, well, they did use heat lamps on patients. I've seen pictures of them where they would have their clothing pushed back and would have a heat lamp on their back, you know, on their lungs, because they thought that the heat would help.
They thought that fresh air, even cold fresh air, was better for you so they called us the open air hospital.
I've been told in the wintertime that they would even have snow on the foot of their beds.
The patients would be out here even in the middle of the winter with snow on the ground, snow like coming through the screens a little bit, and they would have them all bundled up getting their fresh air.
They didn't know what to do. You know, they were just trying to help people and doing whatever they thought would help.
A lot of things we did then that thought was effective was just doing the wrong thing.
This is the most active place that we got on the 4th floor.
Early in the mornings, you'll smell food cooking. I mean, it's like bacon and eggs and blueberry muffins, and in the afternoon, fried chicken, and you're just wondering, where is that coming from? Because there's nothing around here. You shouldn't smell them smells.
You know, oddly enough, last year, I remember that one day, I actually smelled food. And I'm not going to say one thing or another, but I remember I was standing in this second floor hallway, probably halfway down, almost to the point of being in the west wing, and I literally could identify certain smells. Gravy, bacon, eggs.
About 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, we can smell breakfast cooking in the kitchen.
You actually smell them cooking breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Most of the time it's pancakes or something like that, something bakery. And I mean, it's a distinct smell to where you can smell there's nothing.
Do you smell that? Someone's making breakfast. I don't smell anything. Pancakes and syrup. Oh, Annie. They're making sweet potato pie.
What is that there?
Cafeteria part of it back here. Kitchen stove, and at a certain time when that bacon was done, they let them doors down to keep it hot, so stuff was warm.
Anything in there? There's bacon.
No,
For bread, right? For the bread.
Yeah, regular stove.
Smell those delicious loaves.
When somebody died, they put them in that, and then take them down that tunnel.
Everybody follow me? Let's go on down to the death tunnel.
The death tunnel is a 500-foot tunnel dug underground to. Originally, we feel it probably was there for supplies to be brought up and keep people warm.
It was actually a steam tunnel. It was steam heated, and it was used at one point in time to bring supplies up. It was also used for employees to walk up from the bottom of the hill to get up here during the winter months when it was extremely cold and the snow was deep.
They had two rails, looked like a railroad track, and then they got steps. And there's about 4 or 5 steps, and then it's a flat, say, maybe 8 feet. And you walk up these steps, then you get on the flat, and then you walk up another 8 steps, and then there's another flat, and that's all the way up that hill.
But it did, thirdly, have a purpose of transporting the bodies of deceased TB patients.
There was so many people dying at the hospital that they started putting the bodies down the tunnel so the other people wouldn't see them.
At the time, there was a certain point during the tuberculosis epidemic that it was like 3 people an hour were dying, and so in order to keep the patients from being demoralized at their own, kind of impending death, they would cart the bodies out through the first floor to this death tunnel, and it was this conveyor belt system that went 500 feet down towards railroad tracks, and down at the bottom, the hearses or the trains would pick up the bodies and take them home to their families.
A small, like railroad car in there, real small one, that would be hoisted up the incline of the hill and bring supplies up. And as people died, they also used that same cart to lower bodies down to the bottom of the hill.
And it was like a little railroad car. And they put the body on that and let them down there, and then come back and get another, though it's all gone, that they could take. And they'd take them out one at a time.
That tunnel was built for that reason and to put the morgue down there.
They would lower them all the way down the hill inside the tunnel so nobody'd see them.
Because there were people dying frequently in the 30s and 40s.
And they would take them out to the railroad cars out and load them onto a railroad car, or a person could pick them up down there.
They were being very respectful and trying to keep the patients that were alive, kind of keep their spirits up and give them some sort of hope for survival, and yet, they still had to respectfully get the remains of the patients that didn't survive to their homes.
So they didn't want people that were in his hospital literally seeing people dying every hour. So what they would do is they would sneak them out through that tunnel down to the bottom, and hearses would pick them up.
And there never was but one hearse ever come up to this building. And They claimed, a doctor claimed that it upset that patient, and they had this tunnel built right here, and they put that dead wagon in there.
For the first time, I'll be entering the death tunnel.
Are you
Christopher
scared?
and Philip have been there. I'm excited, but the door's actually open, and I'm not really sure how I feel.
Just about everybody that came in that didn't survive went, you know, their remains went through this tunnel, and when we went in there, it was about 20 degrees cooler than it was outside, and it was nighttime, so it was very dark in there, and it was one of the spookiest places I've ever been in, and you just had that different feeling when you went in there.
It's almost like you feel like there's someone behind you, like there's an energy behind you, or there's something pulling you.
What happened was we went all down the bottom. We're saying, okay, we're going to shoot. We're going to basically making storyboards for the shoot. I turned around. Of course, everybody just left me there. I guess I was a slowpoke or something. And I was like left behind there, like, oh, this is great. Okay, cool. Now I got to walk up the tunnel by myself. I mean, this is really great. So I go, no problem. So I started turning around and started walking back up in the tunnel. And I don't know what it was. I felt really ill. It's like something really tragic happened here, like a feeling, a gut feeling. And I just got in my head, I got to take a photo of this. So I took a photo, and then I ran all the way up top of the tunnel.
Yeah, but you tell him he's actually taking a photo.
I wouldn't look behind me. I wouldn't look behind me. Yeah, I was like running and taking pictures behind. Like,
he couldn't turn to look.
I swear, someone was behind me. Anyway, basically the long story is we didn't really think about it too much, and then 2 weeks later, we sat down to go through everything we did. There was a little girl standing in front of me.